This is Welcome to Camp Hither by R.L. Stine, which is book 9 in the Goosebumps HorrorLand series. Chapter 9. Sir Poe! Roddy shrieked, jumping up and down, waving his arms like a wild man. Sir Poe, I told you, it killed him! I stared at the dark green water, so still, lapping softly against the muddy shore. A chill ran down my back. Something had definitely pulled Nathan down, and he wasn't coming up. I'll find him, I shouted to the others. I took a running start and leaped into the water. The cold shocked my body, but I ran till the water was over my knees. Then I did a surface dive and plunged underwater. I opened my eyes, pulled myself along the shallow bottom. The water was green and clear. Nathan, where are you? Where? No sign of him. I could feel panic tighten my chest. And then my heart stopped as something wrapped around my ankle. Sir Poe. I struggled to the surface, gasping and choking. I tried to kick free, but I was being pulled back down. I twisted around to try and see what had me in its grip. Nathan. He let go of my ankle. Then he rose up and slapped the water with both hands. He spit a gusher of water at me. Hey, I'm only joking with you, he shouted. Counselors have to have some fun too. He splashed around, laughing his head off. My heart was pounding like thunder. What a mean joke. Kelly and Sid came running into the water. The three of us grabbed Nathan and dunked him underwater. We had a good time wrestling around, splashing each other, just goofing. The water felt awesome. I spun away and began swimming out into deeper water. When I turned back, I saw Roddy still close to the shore. He was only in up to his knees, and even from out in the water, I could see the worried look on his face. Poor guy, I thought. He's not going to have any fun here. Think I'll go back to the cabin, Roddy called to us. I watched him walk away from the shore, his head down. I had no idea that was the last time I'd ever see him there. See him here. Chapter 10. 1 hour later, Sid, Kelly, and I were on our bunks in the cabin, just hanging out. Sid sat on the edge of his bed, playing a racing game on his PSP. His thumbs were going wild, and crashing sounds blared from the little speaker. Above him, Kelly was taking a nap in the top bunk. One arm dangled down and kept bumping Sid's head, but Sid was too into his game to brush it away. I was writing a note to Mom and Dad. I told them Heather and I gave the camp a big thumbs up so far. Then the cabin door swung open and Nathan burst in, followed by 2 other counselors. Sid didn't look up from his game. Kelly rolled over, still asleep. The 3 counselors had serious looks on their faces. They crossed the room to Roddy's bed, under mine. Nathan bent down and slid Roddy's bag out from under the bunk. What's up? I asked. We're packing up Roddy's stuff, Nathan replied. Which is his drawer? A counselor named Leo asked. I pointed. You're packing him up? I asked. Where's he going? Home, Nathan said. That made Sid look up. He's leaving? He asked. Nathan nodded. He and Leo and the other guy began shoving clothes and other gear into the bag. He didn't like it here, Nathan said. It happens sometimes, Leo muttered. He decided to go home, Nathan told me. He said to say goodbye to you guys. But we just saw him, I stammered. It was kind of a sudden thing, Leo said. He jammed Roddy's flip-flops into the bag. Where's his toothbrush and stuff? Where is Roddy now? Sid asked. Maybe the 3 of us could go say goodbye to him. Too late, Nathan said. He already left, on the bus. We're sending his stuff home after him, the other counselor said. Leo shrugged. The dude just didn't like it here. Nathan zipped the bag shut. He picked it up and turned to leave. The 3 counselors tromped out the door. The screen door slammed behind them. Kelly jerked straight up, wide awake. Hey, what's up? Roddy took a hike, Sid told him. He went home. Kelly blinked. On the 2nd day of camp? Yeah, it's weird, Sid said. Too weird, I said. I don't think I believe those counselors. Sid shrugged. Why would they lie? Why would Roddy leave so soon? I said. Sure, he was frightened, but I don't think he was frightened enough to go home after 1 day. Outside the open cabin window, the loud hissing started again. It started suddenly, as if someone had flipped a switch. No way it could be crickets, I decided. Too loud and too shrill. And why would all the crickets be up at the top of the hill? Too many mysteries here, I muttered. I jumped down from the top bunk. Look, that manga book Roddy was reading. I picked it up from his bed. Wouldn't he take it with him for the ride home? And why didn't he come back and pack up his own stuff? Kelly asked. The hissing sound rose, growing more and more shrill, like steam shooting out of 100 tea kettles. Listen, guys, I said, I don't know about you, but I hate mysteries, so I've been thinking. They leaned closer to hear me over the hissing. Here's my plan, I said. Chapter 11. We wait until everyone's asleep. An hour or so after lights out, I said. We sneak out of here. We climb the hill, and we find out what's making the hissing sound. Okay? Are you with me? They both shook their heads. No way, Sid said. I don't want to get in trouble the first week. I like it here. I don't want to be sent home. I'm not going up there in the dark, Kelly said. No way. Not on a bet. How about if I dare you? I asked. Sid went back to his game. No way, he repeated. Kelly picked up Roddy's manga book and took it up to his bunk to read. Okay, so they were both too chicken, but I knew one person who would still sneak up the hill with me. One other person who hates mysteries as much as I do. 3 stars to indicate a change in time or place, or both. That night, I didn't get undressed. I climbed under the blanket with all my clothes on. I tucked a flashlight beside me. I didn't want to forget it. Sid and Kelly fell asleep quickly. I listened to the hissing sound outside the window, and I kept checking the time on my watch. I guess I fell asleep for an hour or so. When I checked my watch again, it was a few minutes before midnight. Time for action. I grabbed the flashlight and slid down silently to the floor. I crept out of the cabin and closed the screen door behind me, gently. It was a cool, breezy night. I saw a pale half moon hanging low in the sky. The hissing sound rose and fell, over and over. I crept away from the row of cabins, then I turned and started walking over the tall grass to the hill. I was wearing flip-flops, and I could feel the cold, wet dew on my feet. A gust of wind made me shiver. I wished I had worn a sweatshirt and jeans instead of a flimsy t-shirt and shorts. Something scampered across my feet, probably a chipmunk or a field mouse. I clicked on the flashlight, too late to see what it was. I held the light down close to the grass. It made a tiny circle in front of me. I hoped no one was awake to see it. The grass grew taller at the foot of the hill. Cold, wet blades brushed my knees. Grass curled around my ankles like snakes. I gasped when I heard a sharp rattling sound close by. I jumped back. It took me a few seconds to remember it was Heather's bracelet. She jumped out of the darkness. Boo! Not funny, I whispered, and you didn't scare me. Maybe a little? She asked. I shook my head. No way. Diggity donut, she said. She pointed her flashlight beam up at the steep hill. Are we really going up there? You volunteered, I said, shivering. You said you were as brave as me. Braver, she said. She poked me in the ribs with her flashlight. Stop it, I said, jumping away. Heather laughed. Boon rhymes with baboon, she poked me again. Ow, be serious, I said. I mean it. Why did I ask her to come with me? I must have been out in the sun too long. My brain was fried or something. The hissing cut out suddenly. The silence was eerie. We leaned into the wind and started to climb. My flashlight beam darted around my feet. The ground became soft and wet. My flip-flops squished and we climbed. At the top of the hill, I could see a large dark building, black against the purple sky. The hissing began again, so close the sound rang in my ears and made my teeth hurt. What was the dark building above us? Was it filled with hissing snakes? Heather and I would soon find out. Chapter 12. Our flashlights danced over the wet grass. The half moon disappeared behind clouds. The building on the hilltop vanished in the darkness. Think Mom and Dad will at least send me a card? Heather asked. Huh? A card? For what? I asked. For my birthday. It's in 2 days, Heather said. See? You forgot too. She gave me a hard shove that almost sent me tumbling down the hill. I told you no one ever remembers my birthday. Could you please shut up? I groaned. Who cares about your birthday right now? We didn't sneak up here in the middle of the night to talk about your stupid birthday. You're stupid, she muttered. She said something else, but I didn't hear it. The hissing rang so loudly in my ears. I could barely hear my own thoughts. Hey, I'm a brave dude, but no lie, this was scary. We reached the top of the hill. I was drenched in sweat. I wiped my forehead with the sleeve of my t-shirt. The moon slid out from behind the clouds. Pale light swept over a long 2-story building. The windows were covered. No light escaped. A tall hedge blocked the front of the building from view. I couldn't see an opening in the hedge. The hissing cut off again, and now we stood in the deep silence. Was anyone up here? Why did the hissing sounds keep starting and stopping so suddenly? Follow me, I whispered to Heather. My heart was thumping like crazy in my chest. I lowered my shoulder and pushed my way through the hedge. I turned and helped my sister through the thick, prickly branches. Then we stopped and studied the building. "Is it somebody's house?" Heather whispered. "Does Dr. Crawler live up here?" "No," I said. "He lives in the little house behind the mess hall." We stepped closer into the deep shadows of the building. The front door was narrow, built of solid wood. The whole house stood as dark as a tomb. I grabbed the doorknob and twisted it. I gave the door a tug. Locked. "All the other cabins and buildings have signs on them," Heather whispered. "Maybe they want to keep this one a secret," I said. I led the way around to the side. My flip-flops squished on the wet grass. A chill trickled down my body. I knew we weren't supposed to be up there, but it was too late to go back. Keeping close to the wall, we turned and crept slowly along the back of the house. "Heather, look." I pointed to a dim orange glow up ahead. We found the back door and peered in through a smeared glass window. I saw a narrow hallway. It was lit by a small lamp on the wall. I tried the door. Yes, unlocked. I held it open for my sister. She hesitated for a moment. I saw a flash of fear on her face. "Want to wait outside?" I whispered. She stuck her tongue out at me. My legs were shaking as I stepped into the hall, warm inside and silent. I shut the door softly behind us. I waited for my eyes to adjust to the dim orange glow. The hall led to a single door at a far end. No other doors or hallways. "Let's see what's here," I whispered. I took a deep breath and began to creep toward the door. The plank floorboards creaked under us. I tried to walk on tiptoe, but that isn't easy on flip-flops. Any moment, I expected someone to come popping out that door and grab us, but no, we made it to the far end of the wall. I took a few seconds to catch my breath, then carefully, slowly, I pulled open the door. Darkness on the other side. I couldn't see a thing. Heather and I stepped into the room. Where were we? We raised our flashlights and gasped. They're alive," I cried. Chapter 13. I jumped back and hit the wall. I grabbed my sister and pulled her beside me. The flashlight trembled in my hand, but I swept it back and forth over the room and stared in shock at the room filled with mice, hundreds of them, in a pile nearly to the ceiling. No, not a pile, a mountain of mice, squeaking and chittering, 1,000 tiny voices at once. 2,000 little black eyes, 1,000 whipping tails. They crawled over each other. They never stopped crawling and climbing, struggling to climb to the top of that pile. Their pink tails snapped and wriggled, tiny jaws clamped open and shut. I held the flashlight beam on the pile of living creatures. I couldn't take my eyes off the wild tangle of bodies. Frozen against the wall, I watched them climb and scramble over each other and claw and bite, scratching and scraping. "Oh!" Heather and I both uttered cries as a clump of mice fell over the pile and hit the floor with a hard thud. Several landed on their backs, their little paws kicked the air, and they swung back to their feet and leaped back into the pile. I don't believe this," Heather stammered. "Boone, do they see us? What's keeping them in the center of the room?" I raised my beam of light. "They're in a cage, see?" I said. "It's like chicken wire, very thin wire. Look, it goes up to the ceiling. They're totally caged in." At the top of the mountain, several mice were nearly pressed against the ceiling. As other mice scrambled to the top, they lost their place and went toppling down the pile. Then they started their climb again from the bottom. Heather's eyes were wide with fright. She pressed her hands against her cheeks. "Boone," she whispered, "all these mice, what are they doing here?" She grabbed my arm and squeezed it. "I mean, what is happening here?" I swallowed hard. I kept the light on the swarming, squeaking mice. "Sir Poe," I muttered. Heather squeezed my arm tighter. "Excuse me? What did you just say?" "Sir Poe," I repeated. "The big snake. The mice are here to feed him. They are food for Sir Poe, to keep him from attacking the camp." Heather scrunched up her face. "Roddy's snake story? Boone, you're starting to believe his crazy story?" I nodded. "Yes, I believe it. Looking at these mice, I believe it. There's a food pantry, Heather, for feeding Sir Poe, a giant snake." "But Boone, I believe Roddy's story," I said. "I think they got rid of Roddy to keep him from telling the story to other campers, but I believe it. And I believe we're in real danger at this camp." "I don't know what to believe," Heather said in a trembling voice, "but these mice, they're too creepy. Let's get out of here." Keeping our backs against the wall, we slid toward the door. In front of us, the mountain of mice collapsed. The scramble to the top began again. I reached the door. It was closed. I don't remember closing it. Hurry, Heather whispered. I need to get out of here. I twisted the knob and pushed. The door didn't budge. I twisted it the other way. Pushed. I leaned my shoulder into it and pushed hard. No, not moving. I turned the knob and tried again. No. Boone, hurry, Heather cried. The door is stuck, I said, and then I felt something warm and scratchy on my ankle. I kicked hard, but I felt prickly stabs on both legs. A warm body rubbed against my ankle. I lowered the light. I saw a big tear in the wire cage. Mice were tumbling out through the opening, pouring over the floor toward Heather and me. I felt a mouse climb up my leg, felt its warm, dry body, felt its pinprick paws dig into my skin. 2 more crawled over my flip-flops. Heather screamed, Boone, help! They're on me! They're climbing up my back! Chapter 14. I kicked a pack of mice off my feet, but 4 more scrambled around my ankles. Heather twisted and squirmed. She shook her whole body, tossing mice into the air. A mouse leaped onto my back. I ducked and spun and sent it flying. Oh, help, Heather moaned. They're swarming, more and more of them. They're going to bury us. I grabbed the doorknob, twisted it, pushed the door with all my strength. I frantically shook the knob back and forth. Did we lock ourselves in, or did someone else lock the door? My shoulder prickled. I felt something warm on my neck. I pulled a mouse out of my hair and tossed it into the pile. I kicked one leg, then the other, trying to keep the squealing creatures off. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Heather shrieked. She plucked a mouse from her neck. I saw one slide off the back of her shorts. Is there another door? I choked out. I bumped a mouse off my knee. It let out a squeal and jumped onto my foot. I glanced all around. The room had only one door. Mice were streaming out of the wire cage across the floor. Ow! I felt a sharp bite on my arm. I felt prickly scratches up and down my legs. They were pouring over Heather and me. They're going to eat us, I stammered, and the door swung open. Dr. Crawler, I cried. We were caught. No. Dim light from the hall slanted into the room. 2 faces appeared, Sid and Kelly. They both let out startled cries when they saw Heather and me battling the mice. I don't believe this, Sid exclaimed. His eyes bulged. He stared at the mountain of scrambling mice. Then he and Kelly dove into the room and began tugging mice off Heather and me. They flung them back toward the mountain, then grabbed us and yanked us out of the room. The 4 of us stumbled out the door. I couldn't stop shivering and shuddering. I still had a mouse crawling up my neck. Sid grabbed it and tossed it back into the room. Then I slammed the door shut. Heather and I stood there in the narrow hall, unable to stop shaking. I hugged myself, but I couldn't stop chill after chill from sweeping down my back. All I could think of was jumping into a shower and staying under it for hours. I knew I'd see that quivering, squealing mountain of mice in my dreams. Sid and Kelly led the way out of the building. Heather and I gulped down breath after breath of fresh air. Finally, I turned to my 2 bunkmates. How did you find us? I asked. We saw you sneak out of the cabin, Kelly replied, so we followed you up the hill. That was totally freaky in there. What are those mice doing in that room? Sid asked. Good question, I said. The hissing sound started up again, so close it made us all jump. We've got to find out what this is about, Heather said. She fluffed out her hair with both hands. She smiled when she didn't find any mice. The counselors know, Sid said. They've got to. Let's wake them up, I said. I started to trot down the hill, slipping on the dewy grass. Yeah, let's make them tell us the truth, Heather cried. The 4 of us ran, half slid down the hill. The moon kept riding in and out behind the clouds. Deep shadows swept over us, then faded in the moonlight. Nathan and 4 other counselors had their own cabin behind the Arts and Crafts building. We trotted up the door. The counselors' cabin stood in deep shadows. The hissing from up on the hill suddenly stopped. I pounded on the door. Hey, wake up, Heather shouted. I pounded again. Silence. No one stirred. Let's go in, I said. I pulled open the screen door and stepped inside. Heather, Sid, and Kelly followed me in. The cabin was hot and stuffy and smelled of sweat. Yo, wake up, I said. Silence. No one moved. Wow, these dudes are like out cold, Sid whispered. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness. I could see 2 bunk beds against the wall. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness. I could see 2 bunk beds against the wall and a cot under one window. I stepped up to the cot. A long lump stretched under the bedsheet. One of the sleeping counselors. "Nathan, is that you?" I whispered. "Wake up!" I poked the sheet gently with 2 fingers. The bedsheet moved. I jumped back as something slipped out from under the sheet. At first, I thought I was looking at a fire hose, but it took me only a second to realize I was staring at a huge snake. The snake uncoiled, raised itself high, and snapped back its head, ready to attack.